Before they start taping this, before I introduce myself, don't ask who I am, just take it easy. I just want to say before the tape starts, I have never felt this high since I drank bong water in high school. And completely disoriented at the same time. My name is Stevie B. I'm a recovered alcoholic from Florida. This is the I've been to a lot of PAs, and I know my friend from Texas is going to agree with me. I've never seen anything like this. This is the most outrageous thing I've ever seen. There is a young boy in the back doing virtual reality, and I felt like him and I were the only people getting this. It was just him and I, and everyone else was from another planet. And then I kept thinking about Bill. And that thank God Bill is sober. And how it must have been to party with Bill. We do love you, Bill. And there's another young lady that was sitting next to you, also equally wild. You know, Alcoholics Anonymous is a place where we can enjoy ourselves. God gave us a sense of humor. And if you're here for the first time, welcome. You're off the hook. And I would imagine there are people. Can you raise your hand if you're here for the first time? Wow. Wow. Alcohol. I love what Lee said. Lee said about how he was given back a life. Not our old life. We're given a new life. And I didn't know that. My story's going to have some drugs in it. And I know in this... I'm sorry to offend you. But this is Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's not going to be a drug story out of respect for Alcoholics Anonymous. But if I said that I was peeping out of a window for 3 days because of scotch, it would seem ridiculous. And full disclosure, I have one eye and the other eye looks around at its own displeasure. So if I'm staring at you, it's not me, it's the eye. Thank you. I love you. If I was here, we'd be BFFs. And you are out of control, I just want to say that. In a great way, in a great way. No, in a great way. In a great enthusiastic way. Because before we weren't enthusiastic, we were desperate. Before we were sad, we were suicidal. Some of us were suicidal. I didn't think I was going to meet tomorrow. And just everything that you said and that your mom is here, it's such an incredible story that it was so bad for some of us that suicide seemed the only option. That we didn't think we'd make even to today. And yet the program of Alcoholics Anonymous stops that destruction of our lives. And that's what some of the energy is about. The horns and everything is because we've been given a new life. I've kind of feel a little gypped and a little bit of a resentment. When it came to Florida, that was like the weakest. So I wanted to twerk like everyone else. I was going to twerk. Okay. We're never going to gain any traction tonight, are we? It's going to be a stop and start type of evening. I never felt comfortable in my own skin. And I think that's some of our stories. It's a common story in Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't drink and become an alcoholic. And when I say drink, just understand, I'm going to use drink. But drink is everything for me. You know, everything that was ever offered to me, I said yes, unless I didn't understand the question. I'm not a pure alcoholic. I'm a real alcoholic. And I'm an endor. And I'm a please more. And do you have any more? And I didn't really care what it was. And during that night, it would usually start off with alcohol, of course. And then by the time the end of the night ended, it was whatever was available. And I was restless, irritable, and discontent even when I was using, because the first drink that I ever took was the only drink that ever really worked. The first drink I ever took, and like I said, I'm going to say it one more time, substitute whatever the word is for you. Pill, pop, poke, drink. It doesn't matter. The first time I did it, that was the only one that ever truly worked, and everything else was chasing that once truly worked. I became an alcoholic because I was not comfortable in my own skin. And so to see you all, at least for the moment, to be comfortable in your own skin is one of the gifts that God in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous gives to us. That we don't want to be anywhere else. You don't want to be anyone else. You don't want to be somewhere else. We're so happy to be here right now in our own skin, at least for the moment. And that's the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous. We come into a meeting, and no matter how bad we felt in the lobby, or how bad we felt 5 minutes ago, or how bad we felt at work, there's something magical that happens when we enter into a room where people that were once lost are now found, people that were once dead are now alive, and we're high-fiving and we're hugging and twerking. And then the miracle takes place. There was a whole center section that was dead until you said you were going to take off your shirt, and this whole middle section went crazy. Not now. Not now. Not now. Not now. We're in the meeting. We're in the meeting. And I'm not originally from Florida. I'm originally from New York, and there's nobody else from New York in here because nobody else stood up or you were embarrassed to. And from where I was from, and it's probably the same way everywhere else is from, I thought everything in the world centered around New York. I had king baby syndrome. I thought everything centered around me, and everything centered around New York, and everything centered around being Italian, and everything centered around the Sopranos, and everything's, yo, what's up? The kid is here. And yet I felt from the outside, it looked like I was tough, and on the inside, I was melted. And I went to a huge school. Before I became an alcoholic, I was a great liar, a master technician of the mistruth. Any other liars in this room? Yeah. It seems to be a common theme that most of us were incredible liars because we would rather be a chameleon or something else rather than a nobody. So if you pretend you're somebody, that's better than nothing. And I want to tell you one story that really tells the tale of my entire high school, junior high experience. In my neighborhood, it's separated in blocks. And the kids on my block, the guys on my block, oh wow, that's so cool. Hi. Yeah. That's amazing. Can we just thank her and give her a round of applause? No, that's amazing. That's your cousin? I only have one eye, so I didn't know she was there. I just turned just now for the first time and realized there was a whole other section. So if you guys want to help me with the signing, if you see anything going on in this area, just point to that and I'll turn my head. And so in my neighborhood, it was separated by blocks, and everybody that was in my block just happened to have big brothers. the Wagams, the Mungners, the Woolies, the Matas, the Cohens. They all had 3 big brothers. So when they would walk to the playground, they would have a lot of juice because they had like a whole team behind them. They would have people teaching them how to do sports. And I had a little chubby sister. And you don't get any juice for a chubby sister. You get no backup. So I would walk to the playground and I have no backup. And I felt like the reason that everyone was tougher in my neighborhood is because I didn't have a team. And then one day a coach came to school, and I went to a big school, 2,500 kids, 500 in my class. And the coach is going through the roster. None of this is made up. This is all, I want to give you a picture of how my high school or junior high school was. And the coach is going through the roster, and he gets to my last name and he says, Boyarsky. And I said, yes, coach. He says, Boyarsky, does your brother play for the Pittsburgh Panthers? I said, yes, he does. Everybody that had known me my whole life, they looked over at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yes, he does. That's my brother. Yes, he does. And he said, Jerry Boyarsky is your brother? And I said, yes, he is. And that wouldn't be like a powerful story if it was just a one thing, but like I started following this man's career, wearing his jersey, newspaper clippings. When he was drafted into the NFL, it was the greatest day of my life. And I want to say it again, when you feel like a nobody, pretending you're somebody else is better than being a nobody. It's at least a somebody. And that's what alcohol did for me. The moment I took a drink, I became at least an almost. Maybe 2 drinks to somebody. Alcohol and every other substance that I've ever done was able to help me to create a different me until I found you guys. And then you loved me long enough that I could at least start to find out, because there were so many layers in the communion that I had created that I didn't even know who I was. I had the Italian persona, the Jewish persona, because my mother's Catholic, my dad's Jewish, and that's bipolarism at its best. So if you were Jewish, I was Jewish. If you were Italian, I was Italian, you know. A chameleon. Whatever I needed to be. And what happens when that continues to go on, the layers and the layers and the layers and the layers get built, and then you don't know who you are. And when I was 13 years old, there was a kid, the toughest kid in my block. His name is Kevin. And Kevin was the kid I wanted to hang out with because I wanted to go back the next day and tell everybody at school that I hung out with Kevin. And what happened was, Kevin, I went to see if he wanted to hang out with me. Back then, we say, would you like to play with me back in 50 years? You can't say that now, you'd be arrested, but some of you have obviously said that. Currently. And I went to Kevin's house and I said, would you like to come hang out with me? And he said, why would I want to hang out with you? And I told him I had guns. Because in my neighborhood in New York, that was not common, but my dad was a Korean War hero, may God rest his soul. We had guns. So I asked Kevin to come over to my house and we'd blow stuff up. And we started blowing stuff up. And then Kevin got bored. And then when Kevin got bored, I came up with a game called Shoot at Me, and it seemed like an amazing game at the moment. And the reason I share that with you is because I was willing to do anything not to feel the insecurities that I had. And one of them was, when Kevin said he was going to leave, I said, don't leave, you could shoot at me. And when Kevin shot at me, I obviously lost. It was a very painful years, them trying to save the eye, drugs, surgeries. And I share that story is because that didn't make me a drug addict, all the drugs they gave me. I was going to be a something. But whatever avenue it was, that just happened to be the avenue at the time. And the moment I started doing those drugs to get out of the pain of my eye, and I was able to feel a little bit different, I said, this is it. I never want to feel like the other guy again. And I think if you're here tonight, you know what that means. You understand that. That feeling, that first high, the first drink, the first whatever it is. And you say, I don't want to be the other person before because I finally have what you may not use the word self-esteem, but I finally have a feeling of some personal power when I use this substance. And then the substance turns on you. And then what was recreational? I love that saying. It was fun, and then it was fun with problems, and then it just became problems. And I knew I would never do hard drugs because hard drugs was for the losers and the dirtbags in my school. And then I became exactly that. Because one night when they were passing a joint, I always had to be the center of the joint wasn't enough. I had to be the guy that drank the bong water for the entire room. 50 people bong water. I had to be that guy. And I think at this table, you guys understand that. And so things get increasingly worse, and then the bottoms keep going lower, and the flows keep going lower, and the yets keep going lower. I'll never do that. Okay, but I won't do that. But I won't be with that person. But I won't be with that. And then the lower and the lower and the lower. And then I'm from a neighborhood in New York. I'm from a time in New York when New Jack City and that type of era. If you don't know what that means, it's smoking cocaine. And like I said, it's not going to be a drug story. And when that happened, everything changed. The party was over. It became instant addiction. And I went to my first treatment center when I was 21. Really 20. I went to my first treatment center when I was 20. But I just want to back up a little bit from there. It's very hard to do that drug when you're in college without money. And so I didn't get very deep into it. But then one day my uncle died, and he was a doctor in Florida, a very, very well-known doctor. And it turned out he had alcoholism. We didn't know it, and he died in the bottom of his swimming pool, alone at 42 years old, because alcoholism doesn't care if you're a doctor or you're just coming. It doesn't care. Alcoholism doesn't care. And with $1 million in the bank and a Jaguar when no one had Jaguars and a house on the water and everything that a man could want, he died on the bottom of the swimming pool alone. And left me a bunch of money. And when he left me a bunch of money, then I had money to do the things that I wanted to do. And so it got crazy in college. But I didn't have a problem, because I don't know if this happened to you, that when you have money, it's not a problem. But when you run out of the money, it's all of a sudden you realize you have a problem. And so it was like party hardy at Central House, and party hardy, and I was the president of the fraternity. Everything was great because I had the money, and then the girl came up and she turned it into a smoking substance, and then everything changed. And then the money was gone very quickly. And then a little funny story is that I went to school in the Pocono. I went to school in Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania, where I was going, it's in the Poconos. There's a lot of woods. And one night on the way home from work, I worked in one of those destination hotels where the waiters are the same the entire week. They wait on like Dirty Dancing. They wait on the same table. And at the end of the week, you get a big fat tip envelope. And on the way home, I ran into a deer. And it totaled the car. And I wasn't going to be able to go back to work. I wasn't going to be able to get the fat envelope. So I called up my parents that were in Long Island, and I said, New York. And I said to my parents, well, I just hit a deer, and I'm not going to be able to get back to work unless I get the car fixed. And they sent me a bunch of money to fix the car. Subsequently, I was hitting a deer every weekend. For like the next 2 months. Every weekend. Deer. Money coming in. When I finally told my parents I was a cocaine addict, they were like relieved. They're like, we thought you were a moron. So I go home, I tell them that I have a problem with drugs. And I'm 20. And back 35 years ago, it wasn't common to go to treatment back 35 years ago. It's not like now when it's like the fourth option. It's like college, work, military, and treatment. You'll have 4 options. It wasn't like that back then. It was a little bit different. And so my parents found out. Who's from Minnesota? Shout out to Minnesota. Yo! I went to Hazelden for the kids. Some of you guys might have went for Hazelden for the kids. Yeah, what's it called now? Hazelden for the kids. Yeah, I went to something called Pioneer House back 35 years ago. It was Hazelden for the kids. And I had never, first of all, I had never been west of Pennsylvania. And so my parents put in a VHS tape. If you don't know what that is, ask the person that's next to you. In the house, and they said, this is where you're going. You're going to treatment. We didn't know what treatment, nobody knew what treatment was in my area. So I watched a movie called Clean and Sober with Michael Keaton. On VHS tape. I don't know if you ever heard of that. It's a thing. And as I'm watching the show, it looks like treatment's going to be fun. There's a lake, and there's dating, and there's milkshakes, and it's warm. And so I do like I always do back then when I was 20 years old. I pack for working out because I'm always ready to work out, even though I'm smoking cocaine. But I want to be ready to work out just in case that day I stop and I want to work out. So I always in workout clothes. And workout clothes back then was balloon muscle pants and the shirt that my friend's wearing right there, the black shirt right there. Yes, same thing. Except I had 5 gold chains and a lot more hair in the front. No, you look great. I'm saying how I looked. And so I was dressed exactly like that, and I arrived in Minnesota on February 7th of 1999 or 2000, and it was like the coldest year they had had in 50 years. It was like negative 40 when you get out of the airport. I have a muscle t-shirt on. And I realized I had not dressed properly for this occasion. There was not going to be that type of clean and sober type of event with a lake. The lake was frozen over. And unless you've been to, well, this is coldish, but Minnesota's another level. That's like Fargo type of level. And the guy picks me up and brings me to the treatment center. And I'm 20. And I see the steps for the first time. And it says we were powerless over alcohol. And then our lives became unmanageable. But I wasn't there for alcohol. I had a problem with one substance and one substance only. And I called the guy over. I was used to hotels. My dad was a big deal in Atlantic City. He was part of a gambling type of organization. Bill, you're going to travel with me wherever I go. I'm just to share with you. Okay, whatever you do for a living, just call in. You're coming with me. Next week, we're in Idaho. Can you do Idaho? And I call over the guy. I don't know his name. I don't know he's a tech. I think he's like concierge, like from the Diplomat Hotel. I'm like, excuse me. And you gotta understand, back 35 years ago, my accent was like 4 times as thick. So I'm like, yo, what is this powerless over alcohol? I have a check in my pocket from Stan Boyarsky for $30,000. I'm not here for the no drinking part of the program. I'm definitely going back to drinking. I just don't want to do cocaine anymore. And the guy comes over to me and he says, we don't drink here. I said, obviously we're not going to drink here. I saw the movie. But I'm not here to stop. I'm 20. Next year is going to be one of my banner years for drinking. And he says, well, you can leave. I want you to know in Minnesota, they have 0 AMA rates in the winter. Nobody leaves in the winter. I didn't know that. I pick up my 3-piece matching Gucci luggage and I go to leave the treatment center, but there was a snowdrift over the door like The Shining, and no one leaves that treatment center. For 3 months, once you enter, no one leaves. Because it's too cold. And so I tell you that part of the story because it doesn't matter why you're here. I want you to slow down for a second. I know we're having a great time, but I want you to hear something. This is important. It doesn't matter why you're here. Your friend ordered you here. Your parents ordered you here. Your court ordered here. Police ordered. Someone invited you. You're off the hook. I said it before, but I want you to know you're really off the hook. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous because it was freezing outside and stayed. It doesn't matter why you're here. Once you're here, your life can change. I stayed in that treatment center reluctantly for 3 months because I couldn't go. I had only spring attire. And during that time, my parents joined. Are you Lee's mom? No, your mom's not here, is she? You are, right? During that time, this is a long time ago, I just want you to there was a program called Nar-Anon. There is still a program called Nar-Anon. It's Al-Anon for narcotics kids. And they had developed like a lingo. Like my parents went to this tough love class. And like I would call them and they would give me the 3 C's. You're going to hear an amazing Al-Anon speaker tomorrow. If you want an Al-Anon saved my life, our marriage, my household. Al-Anon saved my household. I just want to tell you. And my parents joined Al-Anon, but for kids with narcotics problems. And then they developed the whole lingo. I called them, I said, I'm freezing out here. I'm dying. And usually my mother would send a ticket like right then. She goes, I'm sorry, son. We didn't cause this. We can't cure it. We can't control it. Like Martians came down and abducted my parents. And they let me die on the streets of Minneapolis. It's so cold there. No one exists there. It was so cold they plug in their engines with cords. That's how cold it is. My parents were like, you're going to have to seek help in Alcoholics Anonymous. And they closed the door for mommy and daddy. And they brought me to a clubhouse in Minneapolis called the 2218, the oldest clubhouse in Minnesota. And I met old, recovering people in their 50s. And I looked at them and I said, oh, this must be where children go to die. Smoking cigarettes inside, yellow teeth, beards with yellow on it, that we've been waiting for you. Come on in. I'm like, oh my, this doesn't look anything like the movie at all. And you guys loved me until I could even remotely love myself. And I was so full of me, I don't even know how. I remember one time, because there's sharing meetings there. I don't know if there's sharing meetings here. You go around in the round robin. We don't have a lot of that in Florida. But there were sharing meetings. And I remember every time that the person would share after me, it always was the same share. And I didn't really understand it. They'd always say something like, I remember when my head was in my ass, stuff like that. Some are sicker than others. It was always very similar, the common theme, right? The guy after me or the gal after me always had something going on personally with them. Patience. They would always say something like patience and tolerance. It was always after my share. And they were patient with me and they loved on me. And I joined a group out there called the Pacific Group, the Central Pacific Group, which is a group from the Pacific Group on the West Coast for Clancy's group. And that was an offshoot of it. And it was real AA. And this is real AA. I mean, there's all AA is real AA if it works. And if it's not working, it's not the meeting you should be in. And if you keep relapsing, it's not the group you should be in. And if you keep going out, it's not the people that you should have. The people around you should not be okay with you going in and out. They should tell you the truth. They should tell you the truth I got picked up by this very amazing young lady here today that's got 6 years, 5 years, 3 years. Yeah, 3 years. 3 years. 3 years. And it's not okay for your friends that are around you telling you it's no big deal. We're going to love you when you come back. No, love them before they go out. Call them and say, why are you not at a meeting? You hear this thing, meeting makers making, and then people mock that. Let me tell you something. Meeting makers make it a lot more than people that don't make meetings. There are some rules. Absolutely enjoy yourself. Have an amazing time. Make fun of yourselves. Make fun of other people in a good way. Have great time. But then get serious with the people in your support group. If the people in your support group are buying into the lie, people are dying. This place should be filled 50,000 young people. But a quarter of them have died to this disease because people didn't want to tell them the truth. And the truth is this disease kills. And the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous will lead you to a place with God, and God will place you back in Alcoholics Anonymous, and that hand in hand will save your life. And if you have a problem with God, listen to this. You'll get over it eventually, but listen to this if you have a problem with God tonight. It doesn't matter how you feel about God. First of all, let me just cut to the chase. He loves you. God loves you. Your higher power loves you. End of story. You can't be loved by God. But if you don't believe in God, then believe in God, group of drunks. This is so much more powerful than any one of us. So you can believe in God if that's where you're at right now, group of drunks. Or you can believe in your sponsor and your support group and your home group, which is good, orderly direction. Your sponsor should be telling you what to do. I mean, not everything, but should I date this person that I think is my soulmate because we met at the med line in the same treatment center and we have the same t-shirt? No, that's not your soulmate. That's your cabin mate. Wait, but we're on the same drugs. We're serotonin partners. No. So whether you have God of the universe, the God of the big book, God of the first 164 pages, or you have good orderly direction, or you have group of drunks, or you have a combination, it just can't be you. And so I get out of the treatment center and I'm having an amazing time in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I move down to Florida. My grandfather says, come back. I'll let you run the family business. And I go down to Florida and I get into AA in Florida and I have a year's sobriety. I'm maybe 24 years old at the time. I had a relapse in there in between. And I come into AA in Florida. Good AA, strong AA. Dr. Bob, Bill W. AA. Joe and Charlie AA. Mark Houston AA. Clancy AA. You just can't be your AA. Because the AA that you made up lets you drink and drug and go to see strippers and then come to the meeting the next day. That can't be your AA. It has to be somebody else's AA that works. And I start following people around and I start doing what you tell me to do. And I think all of you are intelligent. I think you're amazing. You introduce me to the steps. You introduce me to the traditions. You introduce me to all the different things that are going on. And I think you guys are geniuses. And I'm so in love. And I'm like 25 and then 26 and 27. I'm going to conventions. I bought in. And then I become busy. And then I let the gifts of Alcoholics Anonymous that Alcoholics Anonymous give me keep me from Alcoholics Anonymous. I can't make the meeting tonight because I'm working. I can't make the meeting tonight because I have a girlfriend. I can't make the meeting tonight because I got this. All the gifts that Alcoholics Anonymous and God gave me now are keeping me. I'm letting them keep me from the program that's saving my life. I can't take that call from the sponsee because I'm busy. And then around 5 years of sobriety, I see her. And I was collecting hostages for the first 5 years. Anybody that would be a hostage. I'm like, come with me. You're gonna come to my dungeon. Spiritually speaking, of course. Because I know the big book and I want to help you. And nothing was working in the God-sized hole that can only be filled with God was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was taking steroids and I looked great on the outside and I was a monster in AA and I headbutted a guy in my home group because he was speaking. I go, bang, I whack him with my head. And then I see her. Final hostage number 212. There was a circus going on in my home, in where I worked, at the mall I worked, a full circus. Everything you could possibly think of at a circus. And one of the circus parts was a showgirl. And she was a showgirl. And she rode in on an elephant. And when I saw her riding on the elephant with those big sequins and those beautiful Latin look and from Colombia and I just looked up and I said, that's it. That's going to fix everything that I got going on right now. And I went up and introduced myself to her, and she didn't want to date me, and then I pursued her. Back then, the stalking laws were much looser, and I pursued her, and she finally just submitted, out of exhaustion. She's like, okay, I marry you. And that's it. And then we got married, and we had a big AA wedding, but alcoholism had returned. I want you to hear this is important. Just because you're sober does not mean that you don't have alcoholism. If you're not actively working a program in Alcoholics Anonymous and developing a relationship with God, sponsoring people, service commitments, everything that they're telling you, you could have alcoholism in your life without drinking. There's people with 35, 40 years of sobriety, I would want nothing that they have. Their faces are squishy. You can tell that they're not working a program. We call them the bleeding deacons. Like, ah. And I became one of those people, 30 years old. I got all the answers. I got the triple black Mustang Cobra. Now I got the Colombian girlfriend. Now I got big biceps. I got it all going on. And I take my beautiful new wife that doesn't know about the United States, and I take her to New Orleans for our honeymoon. And she doesn't know what New Orleans stands for. She just thinks it's Armstrong and jazz. She's like, oh, I love jazz. But I know that New Orleans is going to stand for debauchery. If you don't know what debauchery is, I know there's going to be nakedness and there's going to be lewd, very similar to what we saw earlier tonight here. Without the drinking, of course. And we're on our honeymoon and we're on our first date. And we're in Emeril Lagasse's new restaurant. And those new restaurants, their tables are on top of each other. And I'm supposed to be, I'm in love with my wife, but I also have alcoholism, so I'm in love with me. I'm looking at her, but I'm thinking about me. I'm looking at her, I'm thinking, wow, she got a great catch. I'm so amazing. Isn't she lucky? And the food server comes over and I say, what's going on at the table next to us? And she says, those people have fine wine. Now, I'm 5 years sober. Those people have fine wine, and that fine wine is being put in a decanter to let it breathe. And I had never seen that before. I went right from Mad Dog 2020 to crack. I miss fine wine that needed to breathe. I mean, some of you look like you got into the fine wine. This two people here, the rest of you didn't get the fine wine either. But at 5 years sober, guess what happened? If you don't believe you're powerless over alcohol, you will drink again. If you cannot admit to your innermost self that you're powerless over alcohol, you're wasting your time. This is not like a diet. This is like to drink is to die. And I thought it was like more like exercise program. Like like this is something good. I probably shouldn't drink. Like don't eat too much bacon. And at that moment, I got in my mind that I was going to go back to Florida and I was going to drink like a gentleman, like the people next to the table that were drinking fine wine that needed a break and they were going, oh, meanwhile, I forgot I was the guy who was going, I kind of blocked that out. Rolled up in a carpet in the middle of the floor because I thought it was a great hiding place. I forgot that. Oh, I want to drink like a gentleman. So I go back and I try to drink like a gentleman. But I forgot I had alcoholism. And alcoholism doesn't care that I never drank before. See, I never had a problem with alcohol until I was sober 7 years. And when you don't have an alcohol in your system for 7 years and then you take your first drink, you go like this. Wow, alcohol works. And then all of a sudden I was an everything guy and loved alcohol and became a garden variety alcoholic. And then realized that half the pharmacy, half the Walgreens is actually a liquor store. I never knew that. I'm always going in there for my cards and for my medication. The entire half in Florida is a liquor store. I didn't even know it was there. And my life fell apart rapidly. I wanted to have one glass of fine wine. Next thing you know, I'm rolled up in carpets. I had a 6 felony car crash. My beautiful new wife that I just married, that married sober Steve. Our life came apart. I destroyed the house because I'm a person that when he does drugs is very paranoid. I always believe the police are coming in at any time. And because I believe the police are coming in at any time, I have to find hiding places in the walls in that moment. So I would punch holes in the wall behind the pictures. Put the stuff in the holes, put the picture up, know the police are coming in exactly at that moment, get on the couch, put my legs crossed, put on the TV, and then when they would break in, the police, and they would bust in, I would be like, what are you doing here? I'm just watching TV. It's ridiculous. They never came in. There was no police. I would then realize the walls are hollow, not solid like I perceive them to be. That means whatever you put in the top of the wall now is on the bottom of the wall. When you realize the police coming in, you're not just going to let it just stay inside the wall. There's a very, very small price to pay to take down the wall. My poor wife comes home, then some of the walls were missing, the pipes were missing, all the blinds are missing, the carpets are missing. And I destroyed our home. And she leaves to go to Colombia. And during that time was 9/11. My parents came to save my life. My beautiful mom and dad came out of retirement. Their son was 6, 7 years sober, and now their son is dying on the floor. And they put me in treatment center after treatment center, insane asylum, psychiatric, detox, jail. I couldn't stop. You see, I want to share something with you. It's so much easier to stay sober than it is to get sober. So much easier to stay. If you're staying sober and it's easy for you, consider it a blessing. Because if you go out and you think you could just come back in like a gym membership, it doesn't work. It didn't work like that for me. I went out one day and I spent every single Thursday going out for 2 years. They called me Relapse Steve in Florida. I was hopeless, and I don't say that as a badge of honor. I say that I was dying. Hopeless. On October 11th, which is around Columbus Day, I was going to take my own life like you, and I was going to throw, we didn't have dams. That was an impressive story. The dam was a good story. That was very, very good. But I was going to throw myself in traffic because I was hopeless. And there was a man from AA that saw me, and he put his hand on my shoulder. I was in front of the detox, and I'm standing there. I'm like, I'm never going to be able to take a sober breath. I'm never going to get through a Thursday. I can't stop doing what I'm doing. I can't stop getting arrested. My wife left me. She served me with a restraining order, which is, the police say you can't go back home. And a guy that I never saw again put his hand on my shoulder. I never saw him again. And he put his hand on my shoulder. His name was Randy. And he said, Stevie B, we know you from AA. You'll be able to get back. And I said, I'll never get back. And if you're here tonight and you've relapsed before, I want you to know something. You're a miracle. You can do all things through God who strengthens you. And while I was in that detox, I called up my first sponsor, Jerry Bear, a tough guy from Manhattan that happened to be living in California. And he was part of the Pacific group out there, and he was part of the Marin County men's group. And I called him up and I said, Jerry, what do I do? He says, you're going to get down on your knees. He was very over the top. You're going to get down on your knees today, and you're going to ask God to keep you clean and sober. I go, Jerry, I'm Catholic, because I figured because he's Jewish, maybe he wouldn't know that, I could pull like a religious thing on him. I'm like, Jerry, I'm Catholic. We never pray on our knees outside of Mass, like I was going to Mass. Like while I was rolled up in a bong hole, I was going to Mass. He goes, I don't care what religion you are, Stevie. You're going to get down on your knees right now after we get off the phone, and you're going to beg God to keep you clean and sober. And tonight you're going to say to him on your knees, thank you for keeping you clean and sober. Because if you came over my house and you grabbed the food off my table and you didn't say please, and then you stood up from the table and you went to the door and you didn't say thank you, you would never be invited back in my house again, would you, Steve? I said, no. He said, so why should you be in God's world one day without begging him for the gift of sobriety and thanking him in that same day? You're not grateful, and that's why you're not going to have it. So you better get grateful and get on your knees. And I found out that being on your knees is not about religion, it's about relationship. It's about me saying to the creator of my understanding, God, I can't, but you can. It's when Dr. Bob took people into his house and said, get on your knees, give your life to God right now. You can't stop drinking, but God has an answer. And they were like, oh, we can't get on our knees. Then you can't stay. And I wouldn't have been able to stay. I was hopelessly addicted. Am I going too fast? It seems like you're getting, that's so terrible. It's a very fast talk. I could slow it, okay. I wasn't making a joke. I just seen it going like fast. And I started praying on my knees. to a God that I didn't know, to a God I didn't believe in, to a sponsor that I did believe in, good orderly direction. I didn't believe in the God of the creator of the universe, but I believed in good orderly direction. I believed that Jerry Bear had what I wanted, and I didn't know how to stop smoking crack, and I didn't know how to stop drinking. Oh, and then I picked up another thing, a casual thing, crystal meth. I don't even know where this came from. Just hold on a second. You people make it out here in the Midwest and then export it to us in the East Coast. We don't even know what it is. This nice guy, wait, shh. This guy, my hairdresser, he goes like this, Stevie. He goes, Stevie, you look shot out. I go, I am shot out. I was doing ecstasy all night long for 3 days. He goes, honey, you just need to do a little Tina. I said, hold on a second. I used to have a terrible problem with cocaine. That was 9 years ago. I'm not going to get into a bad situation. He goes, no, honey, this is just Tina. And he took his little cute little fingernail, he puts it in a little bag like this, and he gave a little Tina, and all of a sudden I was, whew. That Tina was beating me all the time like Ike. It was horrible. I was rough. That was like a whole new addiction that I took on, and I didn't even know where that came from. That was just like a side thing. I did not plan that. And back 30 years ago, that was not something you should get involved with in Florida because you couldn't find it. So I had to pretend I was gay and hang out in gay nightclubs and go, hey. Anybody got any Tina? Yo, what's up? Hey. That was a tough era. Anyway, that was a little sidetrack. That shouldn't even have been on the tape. If you could just take that right off there. If you could just omit that, that shouldn't be on there. Just delete the last 5 minutes. I'm sorry, I digress. Squirrel. So, I get on my knees in the detox. And I get a week. And then I decide I'm going to move back home. I don't know if you caught in the story that my wife served me with a restraining order. I didn't really know exactly what restraining order entailed. I thought it was more like a suggestion. I didn't know it was more like, but it turns out it's like an order. And so I wanted to go home. And I said to the guy that came to present me the idea that I was going to go live in a halfway house. And I said, I'm not going to live in a halfway house. I own a full house very close to the center. I don't need a halfway of anything. And he said, no, this is a restraining order. And you're not going home to any house. And don't worry, I'm gonna wrap this up for you guys. God showed up for me when I didn't believe in him. He had a plan for me when I didn't even know there was someone to give me a plan. And I went and I started living with men that I was not related to. And that was 24 years ago. One of those men just got out of prison. The other man, may God rest his soul, died from Texas. Beautiful boy, Todd, 44 years old, just died 2 months ago. My other friend's just coming back. He's doing amazing. He's got 2 years in California. And I'm the only one that has coming up on 25 years. Why is that? Why is that? I started doing uncomfortable things. I started following a God that I didn't understand because you guys told me to. I started taking suggestions that I didn't want to do. A guy like I don't have to clean ashtrays. I don't smoke. Oh yeah, but who cares? You're going to clean ashtrays. You're going to go to meetings. You're going to go to meetings. You're going to meet people that you love, and you're going to love on them as soon as you meet them, and that's going to be called the language of the heart. That's going to be called the language of the spirit. And you're going to do the things I tell you to do, and I didn't want to do them, and I started doing them. But my wife wouldn't let me come back home. And that's how you may hear that I became a church guy. And the reason I became a church guy is my wife started going to church, and I wanted to get back in the big bed, so she said I had to go to church. And so I followed her to church. And then something happened like with Bill W. I had an out-of-body experience in church. I've never been the same. You know, it says we're quick to see where religious people are right. I'm not saying that that's your path, that's my path. I'm just telling you my story. And then church and Alcoholics Anonymous, those two things, it's the same thing I do today. It's never changed. And then I wanted to go back home and live in the house. And so she allowed me to come back and live in the house at 11 months of sobriety, right around 1 year. And in my first day in the house, now I'm praying to God. I don't have a serious relationship with God, but I'm praying to God. And in my first day back in the house, I decided I'm going to turn the mattress over because I hadn't lived there in a year. And I felt it was lumpy or what. I don't know why I turned the mattress over, but I did. And when I turned the mattress over, there was my stash. And I've never been able to say no to a drink or drug looking at it. I had just gotten off my knees. I was just thanking God for my wife. I was just thanking her for bringing me back in the house. I was just thanking her for my sobriety. And God showed up for me when I didn't deserve it. And I was able to have the power to call up my wife downstairs and say, sweetheart, you got to come up. There's something going on up here. She cried. I cried. We got all the stuff. We put it in a bag. We dumped it. And then I'm going to fast forward for about 10 years. In about third or fourth year of my sobriety, I got into ministry. And that's, that's a whole separate subject. And I started following God in a real purposeful message and a real purposeful way. I started going to church, Bible study, leading Bible studies, and that's that path. But about 10 years sober, I wanted to have a baby. Sandy and I want to have a baby. And I'm a God guy now. And I'm sponsoring guys, and I'm taking meetings and detoxes. I'm doing the whole deal. I'm the whole deal. I'm the AA package. Everything's going great. I don't say no. People say, will you speak here? Yes. Can you do it at 7 o'clock in the morning? Yes. Can you be at 5? Yes. And we want to have a baby. And we can't have a baby. And so we go to an in vitro fertilization clinic, and we do that, and we can't have a baby. And then my wife is from South America, Colombia, and we go to South America, Colombia, and we have eggs donated from one of her family members so that we can have a baby. That works a lot of times. We can't have a baby. And then we hire a surrogate. That always works. That's their job. It didn't work. And then we get pregnant. And then we lose the baby. I don't know why I told that, but I just wanted to hear something. When we lose the baby, I'm not prepared for it because I'm already in ministry. I'm AA 10 years. I'm doing everything you guys told me to do. I'm not prepared to find out that AA doesn't give you a life that's free of problems. AA gives you the strength and a relationship with God that's going to get you through the problems. And we lose the baby, and I'm not prepared. I'm really not prepared. But I watched you guys with cancer and different things and people dying, and I watch what you do. You show me what you do. You go to AA in those times. And we lose the baby that day, and I go to a meeting that I'm taking into a treatment center that night, and my wife goes to Al-Anon that night, and I'm crying in the meeting, and it's okay to cry, and you guys loved on me. You guys loved on me. And there's a woman that's 18 years sober now. Her name is Jana, and she saw us crying in the parking lot. She saw me come in to the treatment center that she was in, and she saw the man that was leading the meeting crying that he lost the baby that day and still took the meeting in, and it made an impact. See, what you do, people are watching. In Alcoholics Anonymous, there's a whole bunch that's said and less that's done. People do a lot of talking, but people are watching your walking. And so that day, I put my program came into action. It wasn't talking. We lost our only baby, and we were still in a meeting that night, and my wife was across town in her meeting. And then we signed up for an adoption agency. And that would have been amazing, except I got kicked out of the adoption agency because I didn't tell you this part of the story, but when I was such a great guy in Alcoholics Anonymous the first time, driving out of my home group, I picked up a prostitute, which is against the law in Florida. I'm not sure what's going on over here. And the prostitute turned out to be a police officer, which is double bad. And I had never told my wife. And then she gets the call from the adoption agency. A man like your husband cannot adopt in the state of Florida. And we get asked to leave the adoption agency. Yeah, I see what some of you are saying, going, wow, yeah. That's how being sober without a program will get you. That's sober physically, but not sober minded. That's spiritually bankrupt, but physically sober. That can happen at any level in any year of your sobriety. We know people that kill themselves with 28, 38, 30 because they're so spiritually bankrupt and they're still sober, and they thought sober would cure them. Sober will never cure my mental illness. It didn't cure my mental illness when I was 12. I was 12 years sober. I gave a kid a gun and go, oh, shoot at me. But Here's the end of the story. God's so amazing that he had this woman come to our house and do a home study. This Jewish woman named Mindy. And the reason I have to tell you she's Jewish is like by now I want you to know like me and my wife are like over the top Christians. We got like holy water in the sprinkler system. We got St. Francis. We got bumper stickers, t-shirts, giant Jesus on the wall. And we know that Mindy from Boca is coming to do the home study. So I say to my wife, sweetheart, maybe we should take giant Jesus off the wall just for now. Turn St. Francis around, say, put a yarmulke on him, and let's just pretend we're not who we are. And my wife says, we're not going to pretend who we're not. If God wants us to have a baby, we're not going to do it by pretending. And she comes and she looks at the giant Jesus on the wall, and she says, do you think God gave you another chance? And we said, we know that he did. She says, well, then how could I not give you another chance? And she signs off on a home study. And then we get a baby listen, this is the cool part of the story. You can get a home study and wait still another 10 years. We get a baby like the next month. But listen, I'm talking about the baby that was meant for us. Because we fly to north of Canada, we fly to north of California, to a state we've never been to, where they make the whitest babies in the United States. And we meet our son on the first day of his life, and he's super white. And my wife's from Colombia. And I'm like an Italian from New York. And we bring back our baby, and she says, what would you like to name him? And we say Joshua. And his birth mother says, why Joshua? We say, because in the Bible, Joshua 24:15 says, as for me and my house, we choose to serve the Lord. And she says, well, I'm not religious. I said, all it means is that our son's going to grow up in a godly home. And I want you to know something. He has. He hasn't grown up in a perfect home, but he's been in 1,000 AA meetings. He hates AA. He's been in 1,000 church services. Hates church. But he has grown up in a godly home. And he's 14. And he's the love of our life. And when he was 9 months old, he sprung out with the most beautiful red hair you've ever seen. I just want to show you how God showed off, and he wants to show off in all our lives. And then I'll get off the stage. He sprung out the most amazing red hair, and the most amazing green eyes, and the most amazing little freckles on his little nose, and the most amazing white skin. There's a reason I'm telling you that. And he's the twin of my mom. And when he walks with my mom, when he walks with us, people are like, whose kid is that? And when he walks with my mom, people go like this. That was God's way of putting the cherry on the sundae, to let us know that was the baby. The one we lost is already in heaven. The one we wanted, none of our business. The one that God picked out from us is in our house. His name is Joshua. And he grew up in a sober, godly home. And we haven't been perfect, but you guys taught us how to be parents. We brought Joshua to meetings from the first week. You showed us how to love on babies that cry in meetings. You guys helped raise him in Alcoholics Anonymous. You guys showed me how to be a man, how to be a husband, how not to cheat on my wife in 25 years of marriage, how not to step outside and never do the things that I used to do. I grew up in a time where I thought that a man could do whatever he wanted to do. You taught me that a man that's serving God and a man that is practicing these principles in all his affairs doesn't act like that. And because of that, I've been able to travel the world. I've been able to see people, meet incredible people my entire life, because when God opens up a door, no man can close it. And the last thing I want to tell you is this: don't settle for sober. Don't settle for sober. You see, God gives us this buffet in Alcoholics Anonymous. And on that buffet, you guys know what a buffet is, right? And on that buffet, the first part of the buffet is always salad and crouton. And salad and crouton is still food. And you see the people in AA that have settled for crouton. Because they go up to the buffet and they grab their plate and they grab the crouton and you see them at the table and they're eating the crouton and they go, how you doing? Hanging in there. And they're miserable because they don't have a relationship with the Creator. And then there's the rest of us. Happy, joyous, and free. Having a ball, going down the rest of it, get cracked crab, lobster, prime rib, twerking, G-strings, we're having all day. God bless you guys, love you.